Bruce. Welcome to ZKM. We are installing at the moment the exhibition New Sensorium, curated by Yuko Hasegawa. You're showing a new piece. Could you explain a little bit and tell us about this new piece?
Basically, it's the person whose job it is to interpret the flight of birds and then make predictions about the future based on that. If I'm not wrong, it dates back to Roman times. And so how the work operates essentially is that it looks at the sky, looks for simple patterns left by airplane contrails. These are just straight lines, so they would be very simple line-based patterns, and then basically compares them for a resemblance to, in this case, the Elder Futhark system of runes, which has been used as a form of divination, but the method in which I am employing them here is, I would not really describe that as being directly connected to any existing or past systems of traditions of divination. So the software looks at the sky, makes these matches, and then displays the results on next to it.
Is it a work you have already done in other places, or is it a work you especially created for the German context?
Well, this is a new work, but the seeds of the idea predate the invitation from Hasegawa-san. But it was as a result of that invitation that I began to delve into it more deeply. Basically, my practice involves having a gigantic backlog of possible ideas that only get unearthed every so often when the possibility of making a work comes into being. And yes, there was a degree of designing it with Germany in mind, in which case the use of the Elder Futhark, which is common to Nordic, Germanic, and Anglo-Saxon populations.
Could you describe a little bit your artistic background?
Part of the reason why I went into sculpture at LaSalle was the relative freedom that it implied in terms of material usage and dimensionality. And right from the start, I was using, well, not really using traditional sculptural materials, not firing things in clay or carving marble, say, but just messing around with found objects. And eventually that led to more media-based works through a fairly circuitous route. I would not really describe my practice as being defined by one medium or another. It's purely based on project by project. If I think this idea is best instantiated with a given technique, then I try to acquire that ability to the best of my abilities, but that doesn't always work out. In a sense, there is a sense of perpetual amateurishness or something to it. So in this case, Auspex is really the outgrowth of a previous body of work. Well, I would say previous, but it's also ongoing, called, the simplest way to call it is the Consider series, but the full syntax of the name is consider, open bracket, enter a city name there, close the bracket, semicolon, cadastre per aspera, which is a pun combining the motivational motto, ad astra per aspera, to the stars to effort, with the cadastre, which is the registration of property boundaries.
And how do you relay your work to the exhibition and the use of media and digital media, how Yuko Hasegawa describes it in her idea and concept about the new sensorium? It's very much kind of, it's very specific also in the Asian world, the use of technique and the digital techniques for understanding or getting a new sensorium. How do you relate to this concept, and is it kind of your experience how kind of media are used, especially from an Asian point of view today?
I would say so, yeah. And specifically within Singapore, my impression that people outside of Singapore have of Singapore in terms of art is that it has a distinctly strong bent towards new media and technologically based artworks, especially compared to the rest of Southeast Asia. There does seem to be some difference in terms of the rate of production and adoption of new technologies in art, and the use of these technologies in the artistic sphere. I think it articulates new perspectives that may not necessarily have been possible beforehand, like not in terms of textual knowledge, but in terms of experiential knowledge.
Thanks a lot for the interview.
Thanks for having me.